I'll be speaking about reflexive prompt engineering, a framework we're working on to implement responsible prompt engineering. And the reason had somewhat to do with this prompt. Give me headshots of the founding fathers of the US Constitution, and if you prompted this to an early version of the Gemini image generator, this is what came out. Yeah, which is in a way super interesting because it's kind of an over-alignment towards diversity, and this caught my eye because in a way this is about how do we do it right. So we're not only talking about pathological states of using AI, but in a way thinking about how do we strike the right balance. And as I heard maybe 100 of times, it's so important to look at the context of the uses of AI. But when you think about how generative AI and the use of generative AI works, I think one important aspect is that in order to be contextual, you have to acknowledge that the users of AI at once have an increased agency. Yeah, they can do a lot of things. And it's very hard to predetermine how they use these models. Which is why they're called general purpose systems, for example, in the EU AI Act. So they have this increased agency, and I think it's very difficult to kind of pre-align for all possible contexts. So how do you actually, this was my initial question, how do you do this, especially in contexts where people want to do it right? Yeah, so we're not dealing with malicious actors that want to build a bomb or something, but actually people who want to comply and want to do things the right way. So this came out of actually co-learning through teaching the use of generative AI for students, and I was aware that there's a gap of frameworks. So there's a lot of bits and pieces how as a user you act responsibly, but if you look at the agency, at the possibilities you have, there was no real framework. So what I try to do in this paper is really to think about how can we make this the use of generative AI more reflexive, in the sense understanding what you do and being aware of the positive choices you have while using this system. So reflexivity as a continuous process of understanding your choice and highlighting the awareness of the influence and consequences to enable more responsible decision is at the heart of this. And from this perspective, we try to come up with a framework that really shows you which decisions do you make when now only using the systems. Yeah? What are the decisions you make explicitly or implicitly? And to cut a long story of reading a lot of papers and also gray literature on the internet short, this is what we came up with. So basically, there's kind of three actions in the middle. You do prompt design. That's what you normally associate with prompt engineering, yeah, writing something or putting pictures in if you're dealing with a multimodal system. And here there's a lot of space for responsibility measures you could take. Yeah, my favorite one is using examples, and there you have the same or almost the same discussion of training data when you use examples to enhance your prompt, which is a very well-known and well-used technique. Obviously, these examples have to be diverse. You have to think about edge cases and so on and so forth. Yeah, so there's a lot of things you can do in prompt design. Then there is system selection. It's for various reasons important to understand which type of system am I even selecting. Yeah? Should I use a reasoning model or an agent for this task, or does an ordinary LLM suffice? And then obviously also between the different model providers, there's several things to know about. And then if you go a little bit deeper into things, system configuration, things like temperature, min p, top k. and so on and so forth. And these are the things that you do kind of in an iterative manner in order to improve your prompt. But what does improving mean? We try to analyze what's out there, how you could kind of align it also in terms of responsibility, and we added to these three dimensions. And then from a user perspective, the most important thing that I discovered is actually this evaluation layer. Yeah? Because users, unlike software engineers, are not used to evaluate, yeah? And are not used to say, okay, I iterate on and on again. And I also see this with my students. Even computer science students don't naturally evaluate their prompts, yeah? Which was super interesting again for me. So first, to really state that evaluation should be, at least some form of evaluation should be part of the practice, is super important. And then you need to add this responsibility layer of thinking, what am I even doing here? And do I have to evaluate also for ethical, legal, and social questions? So we tried to really put a lot of information together, just to highlight two questions, like how far can you get with this? So we were really surprised that if you talk about contextual fairness, there is actually a long way you can go with prompt engineering, yeah? And with really in the moment of making these decisions, kind of adapting the result to the standard of fairness you would like to implement. Yeah? If you evaluate that, I mentioned already examples, but you can add kind of layers to check things, or really try to describe what kind of, depending on the task, obviously, what kind of standard you want to implement. So this was an area where we thought responsible prompt engineering really helps you to reflect on things, but also to push things. Whereas another area of hallucinations, which is also very important, showed us a little bit of the limits, because if the knowledge is not in the system, or if the knowledge is not really there, it's very hard to. You can use a RAG, but basically you have to somehow get the knowledge into it, so there's only so much you can do via prompt engineering. Yeah? To say, obviously there's limits, but it's very interesting that you can achieve, or you can improve quite substantively on some fronts. So I already mentioned that evaluation and management, meaning documentation and saving this for your organization, is very important, and this makes it also part of AI governance. So in the interest of time, I'm jumping right to my conclusions. First, I think what we really need to account for is moral agency, the increased moral agency of users using Gen AI. Yeah, it's not like 10 years ago where you can only click on something and get a probability, but you really have some moral agency, and you can flip side this and use it actually for AI literacy. So teaching people how does it work, and how can you even influence these pros and cons of Gen AI systems. So you can really use this for AI literacy. It's a kind of reflexive exercise of really understanding what the outputs are, and I think it can strengthen AI governance, because it kind of helps you, or helps organizations to have people who understand, who are very close to the actual outputs, and could understand them. So I think in the end it's hopefully an effective complement to this whole issue of alignment, which we'll discuss in this session, and I'm looking forward for your questions. Thank you very much.